1987, the stock market crash. I wasn't around for it. I've read a lot about it, but it seems like it's really scarred, a lot of a generation where for some reason they didn't learn that stock markets do recover. And I think from what I've read too, they were also leveraged pretty heavily into investing and probably treating it more like gambling, and have gone, no, that's not me. Like, that's never me again. And then they've gone, property is the thing, it's safe. But we've then tied up so much of our thinking, our risk tolerance and our capital into buying and selling houses to each other and hoping that the system repeats, but ignoring the fact that, businesses internationally have performed really well, probably even outperformed our housing market, but we seem a little bit blind to the fact that, that's another way to invest. However, now over this last, I'd say 10 years, with the growth of KiwiSaver funds like Generate, having hundreds of advisors on the ground that can teach people about investing, Sharesies, for instance, gone past 1 million customers, we've almost got this clash where 1987 scarring gets met by, what were you guys doing? Hey, like, how did you not get over that? We're all looking at financial assets, and maybe that's part of this turning too, where we go, property's not the only thing that we want to invest into.
Yeah, I mean, that scarring happened to the baby boomer generation.
Yeah.
So, that's my parents' generation,
Mm.
So I too was just a young pup at the time, and so I don't remember much of it. Probably none really directly, other than what I've read since. But I think we have turned a corner, and I think people's attitudes towards, there's obviously, a love affair with the physical. If you could see it, you could touch it, you could enter it, you could do like what I tell my students, there's not much you could do to kind of polish up your Apple stocks, or there's nothing much you can do personally to do anything that's going to affect that. Whereas if you do own property, you could paint it, you could, do improvements yourself. And I think there's definitely this natural love that we have for property. It's just we've taken it too far.
Yeah.
It's become unhealthy. And so if we could ratchet it back a little bit and maybe diversify away from everything in property, that would be a good starting point.
Is that sort of your overall summary or key learning from the things that you've studied about New Zealand property, is that we've basically gone down the path like too far? We've gambled a little bit too much on it?
Yeah, it's probably the attitude that property is guaranteed. I think that's so dangerous to think that property is the way you are going to kind of provide for your family and your future. And what we're now learning as we speak is that might not be correct. It might be a poor assumption. And there's a real likelihood that because we have this huge amount of investors that are, you could see by the numbers of how many people are trying to sell, they're knocking at the door trying to get out, trying to get those capital gains they've built up. If that flow really starts moving and people get more flexible on the sales price and prices begin to slide, prices are always sticky on the way down. They could go up real fast, like we saw in 2020, real fast. But on the way down, everything's much, much more sticky. The only time they get unstuck is like in, say, the GFC in the States. When in the U.S. is different because you have what are called bank-owned assets. A bank comes in and says, "This is now mine," and they will liquidate that house. Whereas here, banks very rarely will take possession of a house. They have the power of sale. They could force you to sell, but they won't take possession. Whereas in the U.S., there was massive amounts of stock that were actually bank-owned. They took possession, and then they fire-sold that stock. So it's possible that could kind of play out here. It's a little bit trickier, but on the way down, it's always sticky. So prices will kind of, slowly reduce until they all don't.